Part 1. An ordinary oceanic flight. The calm before the storm. On the night of June 1st, 2009, at Galeão International Airport in Rio de Janeiro, a familiar buzz of activity filled the air. Passengers of various nationalities, French, Brazilian, German, British, among many others, were preparing to board Air France Flight 447. This was to be a long overnight journey, a transatlantic crossing from South America to the heart of Europe, Paris. The aircraft, a modern Airbus A330 with registration FGZCP, was ready for departure. In the cockpit, Captain Marc Dubois, 58 years old with an impressive 11,000 flight hours, including 1,700 on the A330, sat alongside his two co-pilots, David Robert, 37 years old with 6,500 flight hours, and Pierre-Cédric Bonin, 32 years old with 3,000 flight hours. All three pilots were experienced and anticipated a routine flight. At 9:30 p.m. local time, 01:30 a.m. GMT, Flight 447, carrying 216 passengers and 12 crew members, a total of 228 souls, smoothly lifted off the runway and ascended into the dark Atlantic sky. Inside the cabin, most passengers had settled into their seats, some deeply asleep, others reading in the dim light or gazing at their in-flight entertainment screens. Everything was calm. The gentle hum of the engines was the only sound breaking the night's silence, promising an uneventful journey home. Part 2. Entering the danger zone. Hidden warnings. During the initial hours of the flight, nothing out of the ordinary was reported. However, as the aircraft approached the Intertropical Convergence Zone, ITCZ, a band of intense thunderstorms and turbulent weather near the equator, Captain Dubois decided to leave the cockpit for a rest. He handed over control of the aircraft to his younger co-pilots, David Robert and Pierre-Cédric Bonin. At this point, the aircraft was cruising at an altitude of 36,000 feet, about 11,000 meters, at a speed of approximately 560 miles per hour, 900 kilometers per hour. Before the captain's departure, they had attempted to select a path that would mitigate the severity of the storms using the weather radar. But the ITCZ is a vast and unpredictable region. Around 02:10 a.m. GMT, in the heart of this atmospheric turbulence, an event occurred that triggered the catastrophe. The Pitot tubes, sensors located on the exterior of the aircraft crucial for accurately measuring airspeed, became temporarily blocked by ice crystals. This led to the transmission of inaccurate and inconsistent airspeed data to the aircraft's computers. In response to this malfunction, the autopilot, which had been controlling the flight, automatically disengaged, handing over manual control of the aircraft to the co-pilots. Immediately, alarming sounds filled the cockpit. Loud beeps, the autopilot off warning, and subsequently, alternate law, indicating that the aircraft's flight control system was operating in a degraded emergency mode. This was a critical moment as the pilots, in darkness and amidst a storm, had to manually control a massive aircraft with erroneous speed information. Part 3. Catastrophic reactions and the inevitable descent. In the critical moments following the autopilot's disengagement, Pierre-Cédric Bonin, the pilot flying, instead of lowering the aircraft's nose slightly to regain lost airspeed, inexplicably and contrary to basic principles of flight in reduced speed conditions, pulled the side stick back and raised the aircraft's nose. This action caused the aircraft to ascend rapidly, leading to an aerodynamic stall. A stall is a dangerous condition where the wings can no longer generate enough lift to keep the aircraft airborne, causing it to lose altitude rapidly. The stall alarm repeatedly blared in the cockpit, but the pilots, amidst conflicting data and intense psychological pressure, failed to correctly diagnose the situation. David Robert, the other co-pilot, puzzled by Bonin's actions, struggled to comprehend what was happening. They engaged in a bewildered discussion while the stall alarm continued its insistent warning. Captain Marc Dubois, awakened by the alarms, quickly returned to the cockpit. He was met with a chaotic scene. Two confused and panicked co-pilots, blaring alarms, and an aircraft that had ascended sharply and was rapidly losing speed. Despite the captain's arrival, confusion and ineffective communication between the pilots persisted. Bonin continued to pull the side stick back, while Robert tried to explain the situation. In less than 3 minutes and 30 seconds, this Airbus A330 plummeted from 36,000 feet into the dark waters of the Atlantic Ocean. In the final moments, the frantic voices of the pilots were captured on the cockpit voice recorder, CVR, revealing their desperation and futile attempts to regain control. One pilot yelled, "We're stalling!" and another responded, "No, we're not stalling." This deadly confusion continued until the very last second. Part 4. Impact with the ocean and the scattered tragedy. At 02:14 a.m. GMT, Air France Flight 447, traveling at approximately 120 miles per hour, 200 kilometers per hour, and with its nose pitched up at about 16 degrees, indicating the pilot's persistent attempt to climb rather than descend, impacted the surface of the Atlantic Ocean. The force of the impact was so immense that the aircraft disintegrated. Debris from the plane and the bodies of passengers and crew were scattered across a vast expanse of the ocean. The moment of impact was so swift and destructive that there was no chance of survival for any of the 228 occupants. In the initial hours following the incident, air traffic control received no response from Flight 447, and as time passed, concerns escalated into horror. A search and rescue operation was launched, but finding even a trace of the aircraft in the vastness of the ocean was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Days passed, and only a few small pieces of wreckage and a limited number of bodies were recovered, confirming that a massive tragedy had occurred. The absence of an emergency signal or radio contact made this incident one of the most mysterious aviation accidents in history, sparking widespread speculation about its cause. Part 5. From the ocean depths to enduring lessons. For a long time, the exact cause of Flight 447's crash remained a profound mystery. The primary challenge was locating the aircraft's black boxes, the Flight Data Recorder, or FDR, and the Cockpit Voice Recorder, or CVR, which lay at a depth of approximately 13,000 feet, 4,000 meters, beneath the surface of the Atlantic in a vast and rugged underwater terrain. After 2 years of relentless and costly search efforts using advanced subsea equipment, these invaluable black boxes were finally recovered in April and May 2011. A meticulous analysis of the information retrieved from the black boxes unraveled the mystery of this disaster, revealing that the primary cause of the crash was not merely the temporary icing of the Pitot tubes, but a combination of human errors and deficiencies in pilot training. The findings unequivocally showed that incorrect co-pilot reaction. The most significant factor was the co-pilot Bonin's action of pulling the side stick back and pitching the aircraft's nose up while it was losing speed, stalling, whereas the correct response is to lower the nose to regain airspeed. Misinterpretation of stall warnings. The pilots, even when confronted with persistent stall alarms, appeared to have either not correctly identified the situation or were unable to react appropriately. Deficiencies in pilot training. It became clear that the pilots had not received sufficient training in manually controlling the aircraft during a high-altitude stall without the aid of automated systems. They had become overly reliant on the autopilot. Issues in crew resource management, CRM. The lack of effective and clear communication between the pilots in critical moments contributed to their confusion and inability to make the correct decisions. This tragedy led to fundamental and widespread changes in the global aviation industry. Overhaul of pilot training programs. Airlines and international aviation organizations such as EASA, European Union Aviation Safety Agency, and the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, revised their training curricula. Greater emphasis was placed on practical pilot training in simulators for handling high-altitude stall conditions and manual aircraft control in emergency situations. Improvement in warning system design. Discussions arose regarding the clarity and comprehensibility of warning messages in the cockpit to prevent pilot confusion under high-stress conditions. Increased awareness of pilot fatigue. This incident also highlighted the critical importance of managing pilot fatigue and its impact on performance during emergencies. Air France Flight 447 became a painful symbol of the complex interaction between humans and machines in high-risk environments. The legacy of this disaster is a continuous and unwavering effort to enhance flight safety, train pilots to face any challenge, and ensure that such catastrophic errors are never repeated, making every flight safer than the last.